welcome.
Thank you.
Back to another session.
I wanted to ask you regarding a friend's passing recently. We had, let's say, a final conversation when he was in the hospital and lucid for a bit. And his last words to me were that he was going to get out of there and concentrate on his healing. And he passed shortly thereafter. So my question is, relative to his healing, was that a statement of what was going on beyond this life, or his intentions beyond this life?
Well, we can guess from different angles. For some, looking at it physically, he may not have been able to complete his desire, but at least we can say it was a good desire. See, that he wanted to recover some healing, and that he had reached that point in his life, despite how he got to his, let's say, death condition, whether that was by negligence, self-abuse, or whatever. He was there, he was ready to go. And that you can see it from another angle, in the spiritualist angle. Say, yeah, well, the healing begins once you're out of the body. There's no doubt about that. And so once you're out of the body, out of the grips of the gravitational forces of the physical body, then of course there's healing. It's more immediate healing. I'm not saying it's the same for everybody, it will come differently for each individual person. But yeah, it's really about the healing. You come to recognize and then have to yield to a whole different level of reality outside of the body, related to the body in the past, but then outside of that and related more to the now in the bardo, let's say whatever bardo you're worthy of or you're aware of and having to be responsible for as an awareness, as a spirit at that point. So there's much that can be said regarding the process of healing out of the body. So while we're still in the body, there's healing beyond the body at the same time. You have mental healing, you have emotional healing, then you have physical healing. So physical healing is one of many levels of healing. There's brain healing, that's another level of healing that's relative to the brain, and then from there you have different mental healings, psychic healings, memory healings, past healings, present healings, future healings. So the healing thing is something that is pretty vast. So a lot needs to be healed. You have past karmas to be healed. You have present karmas to be healed. Present relations, past relations to be healed. Future relations to be healed. All of these things are happening pretty much on an ongoing basis, unbeknownst to most people, in terms of balances. See? So we are in a living a life which demands that we have infinite checks and balances going on. It's like breathing, it's infinite checks and balances. See? Without the breath cycle, taking care of business, we may be, we're dead without it. There's no question about it. I have no doubt about it. We are dead. And if we're not breathing properly, we're just going to be almost dead. See? Psychically bereft. See, psychically imbalanced. So you have to breathe properly, you have to breathe fully, and you need to bring in some good oxygen, good air into your body to sustain your body and your brain and everything else that's important for your living. And all of this is part of the balance and part of the healing.
And is this healing, let's say, cleaning up one's karmic past? Is that part of it? Or?
Always. Yeah, always. You're not going to be clean in the present unless you've cleaned up the past, which obstructs that. Anything you're suffering is because it's karma in the past. It's not just happening now, it's showing up now because of what was. And that's what it is. It is a result of what was. So you have to understand the laws of karma, cause and effect, so you can understand that what you're suffering, you created and you set into motion at some point. And if not you directly, if you can't own up to it, then you had agreements to be with certain people in certain situations. No one forced you into them, but you. So you just need to go back on the time track to where you see you created what it is you're experiencing, so you can be complete with it, you can be completely present with it, and empowered by it for whatever is next after you acknowledge what you've created as being your own doing, so you continue to have power to create more. Instead of being in conflict about let's say, a misunderstanding relative to who created you. and your situation. If not you, who created it? But your parents, that's where it goes back to. If you don't take responsibility for it, and then it goes back to where you came from. Okay? To the origins of your life and what it unfolded into, whether that's death on the battlefield or death in some kind of situation, death on a surgical, let's say, bed, some hospital situation, or death in some paradisiacal situation where you are having a very peaceful passing, right? And it's all part of your agreements, see? Part of what you've created, and what, not even what you deserve, but what it is. It's not about deserving it, just is what you've agreed to, and you see that happening. Okay? So we may, in other words, we can have the desire to pass peacefully, but we're not living the life to fulfill that desire. So I wish I died this way. God, heal me. Lord, Spirit, whatever, heal me. This is where I want to go. But you're living to the contrary, so it's really going to be about the momentum you create. And from the momentum, then, that's what you're going to be, not so much judged by it, but that's what's going to be determining what happens. The momentums you create, or you allow other people to create and put upon you. And so it's really simple and very clear. You are responsible in any and every case. And you have to do something about it. And you have to wake up to what it is you've created that you don't want to happen to you. Lady or gentleman, it's on you to do it.
So if we're responsible for everything, can we, let's say, set goals for the afterlife?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you can plan that just as you can plan for this life, for tomorrow. You have to plan it. And you have to be in tune with what your possibilities and what your karmic, let's say, opportunities are. So that you're managing your life based upon what your means happens to be. So you have means to do that. If you're planning on something you have no means to accomplish, then there's a disparity there. There's a certain kind of disconnection. See? Incorrect use of your visionary powers. See? So you have to have means to do it. And or time and circumstance. So something that you may envision could be something very far out, but you're willing to go the distance and create the karma, which is wise. Then you're creating properly. Say, yeah, no, I want to wind up at a certain point in some mountain area, but I know it's going to take time to get there because my karmas are functioning to the contrary of that. I'm very metropolitan oriented in my lifestyle. I like being around a lot of peeps. I don't like space, and now I'm talking about ultimate space in some high mountain range. So you got a lot to deal with there in terms of creating that. You either need a lot of money, a lot of desire, a lot of connections to get to that place, and a lot of willpower and a lot of detachment from what you've been existing at. See? Okay, so we have to consider means, and then to consider what the vision is, see? What the path is, to what the goal is, and this is part of the process. You have a basis for it. That means you understand your karma, you understand who you are, what you need. Then you have to consider a path that is adequate to satisfy from your recognition of who you are and where you are and how you are in terms of your health condition, all of these factors. And then you have your result, where you need to be, how you want to be when the time comes. All of this is manageable, not entirely egoically created. It's really a matter of opening, not so much as projecting stuff, but opening to what it needs to be as in terms of what it could be for you. See, based upon a more open sense of what it is.
So then is it possible to see death as a creative process and an extension of the creation?
Birth is a creative process, life is a creative process, death is no less a creative process. And we're talking about doors opening and revealing more of the wonders and mystery and the beauty of being in the universe. You're being a being here. Not in any particular form. You start out with particular form, then you realize that there's also being the universe, not just being a particle in the universe. Being the universe. And sometimes being a particle is being the universe, but you need to be conscious of what being the universe is from the particle viewpoint, because then you might be more than that at some point. You might be the universe looking at a particle rather than a particle looking at the universe.
We make a distinction between the trained and untrained in life. Does that also apply in death? Is one trained for death or naturally?
Obviously, you're talking about education, being open to it. Or it can just happen. You can just show up as a piece of dead meat, roadkill. Right, in 2 seconds, you're roadkill. No lead up that you know of, that you're aware of. But it's all part of it. There's a part of you that knows you're going to be roadkill. You just need to not fear it. Say, hey, you have to ask your guardians, your inner guardians, am I going to wind up as roadkill? What's going to happen? Is there a way I can know that? I really want to know. I want to be open to what it is. See? Because there may be in that mix the possibility of changing and altering. So that's part of the creative. See? In other words, you're because of your situation, your karmic situation, you are destined to go a certain way, because 2 plus 2 equals 4, right? Ordinarily. Even though you're thinking 2 plus 2 is equaling something else. Because you go on your way, but you think you deserve more, so you have some crazy idea of it, maybe a fantasy about it. So, nothing wrong with that. But you really have to see, in fact, that what you're doing is you're creating, and potentially creating, what's actually going to happen, not just what your fantasies are. Yeah. So the idea then is to try and be as still as possible. Not everybody requires stillness, because some people just know. They're already on course, they already know what their momentum is, they already know what their time, space, energy, and matter requirements are for such an operation, so they relax in it. They say, you know, I know I'm going this way, fine, it's clear to me, and I'm going that way, and nothing's going to be impeding it. Yeah. So you have to have this kind of vision. And it's easy to have that vision if you're alone enough to do that, because if you're around too many people, around somebody that's demanding too much of your attention, you're not going to see anything. You're going to see their vision, you're going to see their view. So you have to be careful that the person that you're with is not taking your view from you and swapping it for their view, which is good for them but not good for you. Their fears are good for them but not good for you. Their concerns and worries and all of that is good for them but not good for you. So you need to understand that when you have an individual circuitry, but then you mix that up with someone else, and then you're too often where there's confusion and let's say delays in evolutionary progression or spiritual progression, there's the overmixing. Too much. Friendships overmix. Sometimes they help. See? They clear up. See? So you got to make sure what kind of friendship you have that's clearing things up for you, but only you can be honest enough to know that and determine that as what it is for you, or they could be confusing. See? And they're both good. See? They both serve purposes. They both create more karma, but we're not sure they eliminate the kind of karma you're talking about initially to be able to die consciously the way you can envision it for yourself.
So then it's a matter of what influences one is open to, and this will affect...
Well, it is, but it's more a matter of what influences you are willing to disregard. What influxes you're willing to disregard because you have a certain specific agenda relative to a certain focus and more of a beam of light approach to what it is. Instead of, well, you're just moping around because you're caught up in emotion and you're caught up in people's stuff and you're waiting for them and you're dependent upon them and you're compromised because of them and you don't have any clarity at all. You're sort of like in the mud about what you could be doing in terms of your forward motion. You just, with peep or a situation in your own mind that is comfortable, that means stuck. Comfortable means stuck.
So is, let's say, our original condition one of wholeness, and that's deteriorated
well, to get to that condition, if you want to call it wholeness or oneness or original condition of reality, then that means minus all the stuff. That means the pure condition. See, so we can say, well, the pure condition is here now, all the time, and then we can say, no, we're not really experiencing the true, real, whole condition now because we're just thinking it. So you can be thinking it, saying, no, the whole condition is here now, and just talking about it. But there is no now that is real, whole, real condition for you, because it's not your experience. It's a thought. So you can read about it in a book and you can say, well, what about this? You say, well, yeah, of course you read that in a book or you heard that or something to this effect. And yeah, you're thinking about it. So what are you doing to realize it? Because you're thinking about going to China, but what are you doing to realize it? So people are going to be talking about going to China, or going to heaven, or going to a state of realization, but they're just thinking about it. So that's not going to do anything except entertain you, amuse you, or confuse you if it could, or be a paradox to you in some manner. Because, well, how can I go there if I'm here? And then, you know, we can flip that paradox. So how can you be anywhere else if you're here? Why would you want to be anywhere else if you're here? And how are you actually able to be here? See, instead of being in your state of confusion. How are you going to be here without confusion? See? And if you're originally not confused, then what are you doing so confused? Why are you finding so much comfort and defending, a state of confusion, emotionally and sexually and psychically? Why are you defending the confusion thing? And a lot of people have that to contend with. That's exactly on their table, right on their plate. And they're going to see marriage counselors and all these people to try and figure out what it is that's happening in a relationship. You're not taking care of yourself, is what it is. And then you think you're taking care of yourself because you're being with somebody else. And then you're complicating it because both of you then need to take care of yourself, but you're refusing to do it because you're imagining that you need to be together because of comfort. And you're not going anywhere because you're too comfortable to go anywhere else. And then when death comes, it hits you like a thunderclap, and you wonder why you're in limbo when that happens. Right? You're in a worse state than shock. Right? It's like, what? How? You're like in shock, astral shock. Let's call it astral shock. So you're in astral shock there for how long? We don't know. You got to come down and come off of that. So in other words, death is not something other than what's happening now. It's not different. The difference is, well, you appear to be in the body that you're controlling, and then after this thing happens, you appear to be in nobody, and you can't control anything. It's a dilemma. So you need to rectify the dilemma in this life by having an intelligent view about what's going to happen to you. It's inevitably going to happen to everybody. And it's really wise to become intelligent, not neurotic about it, but very conscious of the process that you were born to die, and you're dying already. Each one of you is going to die. Everyone is already dying. Don't be afraid of it, because there's nothing your fear is going to do about it, except make you more miserable.
So there are, let's say, creative states of confusion where having all that influx of uncertainty is working for you, or is that a necessary part?
Well, it could be. If you have a certain creative attitude about it, anything that shows up in your mind could be working for you if you know what to do with it. I mean, artists have an advantage, but they usually do themselves in with that advantage. And so the idea of suffering something is really to get a product out and then to transcend that. Not to be stuck in the product or be stuck in the neurosis itself, because that's going to happen anyway. It's human nature to be suffering. So you don't have to do that. You can just leave yourself alone. The body's going to go through its changes, its stresses, and its feelings, and its emotions, and its pain, and conflicts, and all of that. The body's going to be a physical body subject to the forces of gravity and the planets, and life in general, time, space, energy, and matter programming. There's no question about that. Everyone is subject to that. But you also have intelligence that enables you to sort of balance that out in a certain way where you can put yourself to rest and relax yourself. So that it doesn't build up to a point where you have a breaking point. The breaking point is not necessary. Blowing up is not necessary. See, if you're always blowing up, then you have to see that there's something not right there. See, because before the blowing up, there's a lot of power that's being generated, accumulated. See, tension. And creative people need tension. The idea is to use the tension before it uses you in the worst way possible, and you have a breakdown, and you're part of a calamity that you regret. The idea is to do something with all of those forces, your life force and your human nature, that is creative and spiritually correct at the same time. So that if you're not aware of any of this, then you have to be in a situation where you can be made aware of it, and you can be under the guidance of someone who's either a creative person or a spiritual person enough to help you work with your situation in such a way where you're burning off stuff before you start to break down and break apart and have relations busted open when they don't need to be, especially in families. Yeah. So there's too much egoic defense programming going on. There's too much exaltation of differences and not enough compassion, heart sharing, and being sympathetically aligned to one another, where we can identify with each other and say, well, yeah, we don't need to beat up on each other. We are much more in a common situation where we need to listen a little bit more. So we can listen better. We can hear into ourselves by hearing into others better. So we can come up, because of being open to that, we can come up with solutions that can make it work better than it has, which is more or less in terms of getting to that place where it becomes so much friction that there's warfare, emotional, psychic, and egoic warfare, and unhappiness, and hatred, and self-confusion, and doubt, and conflict, that it's just horrible for some people. And often the kids just don't get heard properly, and they're left in their little hell realms, and there's no understanding from the adults that the kids are in hell realms that they inherited, and that are being reinforced by what the parents are doing and what the parents are ignoring in their case, because the parents are feeling that they're superior or better than the kids, and the kids are left in isolation, okay, without real rapport, resonance, and without real functionality, because it's up to the parents to lead the children to a place of peace and harmony. You show them that, yeah, suffering is important, but it's not everything. We don't have to kill each other. We don't have to abandon each other, when there's much more common ground already, because we are family. I'm the father, you are the son, or I'm the son, you are the father. There's already much more common stuff when we start to understand what the ego function is as something which creates too much differentiation, too much desire, too much anxiety, too much selfishness. And so that's a good function if you know how to use it. And in this case, we don't want to abuse it and then kill families when that's not really what we want to do, and that's not what we're here to do. See, so come in now.
So is the uncertainty a destructive force or a creative force, or is it conditional?
Well, uncertainty is uncertainty. See, uncertainty is a not knowing anything, not being sure of anything. See, but that's also neutral energy. See, so uncertainty in that sense of not knowing could be a very good thing. See, it's a pause for you, a gap maybe. Not a problem. Sometimes you need the uncertainty because you have people who are so extremely certain, egoically certain, self-righteous, that they don't give spirit any room to work with at all. They don't have any breathing room psychically. It's too shut down. And so they're not getting the right healing energy into themselves. See? And that's what we need, the right neutral healing energy, not stuff that's just hyped up. We're not talking about just religious fervor as the right kind of energy, because there's no neutral energy there. Too much positive energy is not neutral energy. See, too much righteousness is not intelligence. See, and that's what we need to understand. More calm, more open, more tolerant, see, rather than self-righteous and political about things. See, so our thing is better than anybody else's thing, but you got to get off of that self thing. That's looking at the monkey in the mirror. You can't be operating from there because there's no heart in that. You've got to get to heart consciousness. You're going to be anything like a Jesus or a Buddha. It's heart consciousness. Heart open. That's ultimate state for some peeps. If you read the history of mankind and you read the evolution of spiritual and philosophic ideas, and you see that when we're talking about the big-heartedness, where's the big-heartedness? If all you're doing is warmongering by way of religious fervor. So it's warmongering, right? You're setting yourself up to be killed or kill other people. That's nonsense. It's destructive. It's against the idea of a deity, spiritual deity, and against the idea of a divinity and all beings being sacred and part of a big universal family, which I think is an ideal worth considering. And then following up on to a certain degree. Come on.
So is Christ or Buddha consciousness equal to the elimination of uncertainty?
Well, it's not about eliminating. What do I know? I think that's the first thing I have to say. Well, what do I know? We're not talking about eliminating it. We're talking about rising to an occasion, rising to a level of consciousness where it's not about eliminating or including anything. That's about being gone, see, just being open. And from the openness, being open to channeling in the way that I speak, then in the way that I play, in the way that I do certain things, it's a way of practice, then it happens better that way. It's not correct, righteousness, or it's not that, but it's not even correct in terms of incorrect. No, just it's the way it needs to be. And it feels so right in a sense, but without righteousness, it's just wholesome. To use the word wholesome, yeah, it's healing. Talking now about the healing. Not because my ego is satisfied, but because my body's relaxed, mind is relaxed, and I feel healing.
Would you call that an effortless condition or state?
It's an effortless origin of everything. Effortless. Even the Big Bang was effortless. Effortlessness. It's all effortless. You know, it happens of itself. Gas, boom, coming out. Urine, coming out. Excretion of any form, coming out. Effortless. See? Exhalation, effortless. See? Seeing, effortless. Hearing, effortless. Being, effortless. See? You just need to then add to that state of presence and reality a sense of more relaxation, opening to relaxation. Settling down, abiding, Some people say that's gentleness. When I'm playing, that's and it's most fierce, it's more gentle than anything you ever imagined. You just don't hear it that way. So you imagine it's too intense from your state. But for me, it's the more I give, the more I feel the gentleness. And the hands are flying off the frets. I call it now a condition of off the frets. Off the neck, gone. Effortlessness. Speed of light, effortlessness. Light energy, effortlessness. See? Fire, effortlessness. See? So intensity is relative to who?
So would that effortlessness be, let's say, the opposite of uncertainty? In the sense, are you...
Well, it's not opposite of uncertainty or certainty. This is beyond certainty and uncertainty. By whose standard is certainty better and uncertainty worse? Who are we talking about here? Right? The emperor or the slave? Uncertainty and certainty. It's relative. So we have to be careful of the paradoxes of relativity and the applications of relativity in terms of like enhancing our ability to communicate with one another and correspond in a certain way and negotiate with one another. See? Negotiate, correspond, and be able to create with one another so that we can, at some distant point in the future, not now or in the past, create a certain kind of healing front for mankind. What's the healing front? Because we know there's the war front. There's a lot of war fronts these days. And that's healing something. In somebody's head is healing some kind of tension, some gratification coming out of that somewhere. Otherwise why do it if it's not gratifying somebody's trip? But we need to get beyond the brutal, say, level of, let's say, the healing front, the brutal level of the war front, and get back to the real healing front. So the healing front that's brutal is not good for everybody, and it's not even good for the people that are doing it. They're just putting themselves through extreme pain for no reason at all, except we're out of control, we're undisciplined, and we're dumb. We're ignorant. We're not really heart sensitive. We're not thinking with a heart. We're thinking with our groin. So as long as you're thinking with your groin, then there's no growing. You go groin, there's no growing. We need to be thinking from the point of view of the heart and growing, and that's much less than the amount of effort we invest in the groin.
So then are we struggling, to do nothing in a sense? Are we working too hard?
No, we're always doing nothing, but we don't know that as such. And a whole lifetime amounts to nothing. So, when your mother's saying, hey, what are you doing? You're busy doing nothing. You say, no, Mom, I'm busy. I'm playing this, I'm playing that. No, you're just doing nothing. Mother's right. You're sweating from the games you're playing, but Mom's saying, that's nothing. She knows something you don't know yet because you're a kid. She's wise. She's acting as guru then. The mother's guru. Then the child, if the child is really a student of the mother who the child recognizes as guru, say, well, what do you mean? Doing nothing. She would say something like that. You got to do more than that. You got to do more than what you're doing. That's nothing. In other words, your potential is nowhere near just playing with yourself. So child's play.
And so is that where the focus should be, on the potential as opposed to the present, or are they one and the same? Well,
the present is full of potential. We need to equate that. The present is potential. Potential for what? More. Whatever the more means to you. Is it more madness? No, obviously don't need more madness. We need more healing. So we're going back to something which we're going to talk about, I think, forever here. And it's the healing quality and the healing quantity in what we do with ourselves or with others.
And as we continue that, does it amount to a process that one thing builds on the next, and we're...
Oh, yes. Once you get into, let's say, the groove, we use that in jazz. You got to get in the groove, or the rhythm. You got to get in the thing itself. Once you get into the rhythm, the groove, or this vibration, this resonance, right? Which we're talking about, the resonance of healing. It's self-creating. Everything is self-sustaining and self-creating. That's a secret in the universe. Stopping is self-creating. Cessation is stopping and self-creating in a certain way. And doing is also self-creating. Thinking is self-creating, self-generating. Emoting is self-creating. Acting is self-creating. See? Physical motion is self-creating. So, silence is self-creating. And noise is self-creating. So altogether we see whatever it is that's showing up as a perception is self-creating, self-reinforcing. See? So then you have to be conscious to know what it is that you want to self-create or self-reinforce, self-sustain. And that's how we see this. See? And there's maybe a little bit of enlightenment in that. See? What are you willing to be that you're willing to do? What are you willing to do that you're willing to be? Because doing is being, and being is doing. What are you willing to, let's say, stop being in terms of what you're willing to do? What are you willing to do in terms of what you need to stop? Stop doing and stop being. So all of these are important equations in the creative mind that bring you to a sense of more responsibility for your future and your present and your well-being and your healing. See?